People say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life, but they never talk about the moments that ruin it before it even begins. They never talk about the silence that grows teeth, the whispers that turn sharp, or the way your own heart can feel like it's slipping out of your chest. I realized something was wrong the moment I heard my name spoken in a tone usually reserved for funerals. "Have you heard? The groom came in with someone else." The words sliced through the walls like knives. Another voice trembled. "He said she's been the real bride all along." My pulse stopped. My breath halted. And while the world blurred, one truth rose above the chaos. He thinks I'm going to walk out there and crumble. But he has no idea I'm already gone. If you want to know how a bride disappears from her own wedding, stay with me, because that's when this story stops being about heartbreak and becomes something far, far more unforgettable. I had spent months preparing for this day, choosing a dress I thought he'd love, picking flowers that matched his taste, compromising on colors, music, everything, just to make sure we blended perfectly. Armin always liked things just right. He said it made him feel in control. Maybe that was my first mistake, letting someone like him believe control was his birthright. Still, I trusted him, not blindly, just deeply. And love like that can be dangerous. The morning of the wedding felt strange from the moment I opened my eyes. The skies were too still, the air too heavy, my heart too alert. My mother kept saying I looked beautiful, that happiness was glowing on my face, but she didn't know the smile I wore was trembling at its edges. I tried to ignore the feeling, brushing it off as nerves, but intuition has a way of speaking even when you want it silent. When we reached the venue, something tightened in my chest. The wedding planner wouldn't meet my eyes. Her assistant kept whispering to her. The makeup artist asked if I was okay at least 3 times. Behind my back, conversations stopped abruptly, like people were hiding words under their tongues. I didn't want to assume anything bad. I didn't want to believe anything could possibly ruin this day. But the uneasiness grew until I could barely breathe. I was alone in the bridal suite when my phone buzzed with a notification that would shatter the last pieces of my innocence. I expected a message from a friend or cousin. Instead, it was a photo. One I wish I could erase, but I'm glad I saw. Armand, standing in the center of the wedding hall, holding the hand of a woman in a shimmering silver dress. Her eyes were sharp, triumphant. Her smile was cruel. His expression, proud. And the caption under the photo, likely from someone in the hall who couldn't resist sharing, made my knees weaken. He says this is the woman he loves, says she was meant to be the bride. The world spun, but oddly I didn't fall. I didn't cry. I didn't even scream. I felt empty, as if someone had scooped out everything inside me and replaced it with ice. Sounds from the hallway grew louder. Gasps, whispers, footsteps rushing. Someone said, "What will the bride do now?" Another said, "Does she know?" Their pity floated to me like smoke. I stood there staring at the mirror, at the girl wearing a gown meant for a future that had just been torn apart. And that was when something deep inside me snapped. But not the way people expected. It wasn't the weak, collapsing kind of break. It was clean, sharp, final. My tears didn't fall. My hands didn't shake. Instead, a strange calm settled inside me. A calm that felt almost powerful. The kind that comes right before a storm. That's when the idea formed. Quietly, boldly, like a whispered dare from the universe. I wasn't going to walk out there and let him humiliate me. I wasn't going to confront him, question him, beg him, or fight for a place he had clearly given to someone else. No. That version of me, the one who lived for his approval, had died the moment I saw that photograph. I turned away from the mirror, reached for the emergency exit key I had noticed earlier on the wall. Something small, something ordinary, something no one ever pays attention to. But in that moment, it became my lifeline. Before leaving, I removed the heavy jewelry piece by piece. My earrings, my necklace, my bangles, symbols of a ceremony that no longer belonged to me. I placed them gently on the table, like parting gifts for a chapter I no longer wished to read. Outside the door I could already hear loud voices. Someone had told the guests. Someone was rushing toward the room to check on the bride. I had only seconds. I slipped out through the back hallway, heart steady, footsteps light. No one saw me. No one stopped me. I pushed open the emergency exit door and stepped into the bright sunlight, feeling its warmth on my skin like a blessing. The wind pulled at my veil as if urging me forward, away from the betrayal, away from the noise, away from him. And then I walked, calmly, silently, with the dignity he never expected me to keep. Inside the hall, at that very moment, Armand stood at the altar, fingers intertwined with his lover's, waiting for me to appear so he could destroy me publicly. He expected tears. He expected a scene. He expected a shattered bride. What he got instead was an empty aisle, a crowd gasping, chaos erupting, and a single voice crying out, "She's gone! The bride is gone!" That was the moment he froze, not when he walked in with his lover, not when people questioned him, but when someone whispered the only thing he feared. She disappeared. Even from miles away, I knew the panic must have clamped around his throat. Because men like our man only know how to control people who stand still. They never know what to do when a woman walks away before they can hurt her. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I simply left. And as I stepped into the car waiting outside the venue, a car I had secretly arranged. Earlier, when the first whispers of betrayal reached me days ago, I knew this wasn't the end. My disappearance wasn't my downfall. It was my beginning. And if you think me vanishing from the wedding was the twist, wait until you see what was waiting for him after. They say the real shock isn't the betrayal itself. It's the moment the betrayer realizes you were never as weak as they believed. And when Armand stood frozen at that altar, the crowd buzzing, cameras flashing, and his lover awkwardly clinging to his arm as if she belonged. There, he still didn't understand that everything unfolding was no accident. My disappearance wasn't confusion. It wasn't panic. It wasn't heartbreak. It was strategy. And the best part? The consequences of what he did were already set in motion, long before he walked in with that woman. If you think the empty aisle shook him, wait until you see what happened when the truth finally hit him like a tidal wave. The moment the guests realized I was gone, a thick silence swallowed the hall. The music stopped mid-note. The photographers lowered their cameras. Even the flowers seemed to wilt under the weight of humiliation hovering in the air. Someone screamed my name. Someone else asked if I fainted. Another person whispered something harsher. Maybe she found out. But no one dared finish the sentence, because the truth was already staining the atmosphere like smoke. Armand tried to fake a confident smile, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. His mother pushed through the crowd, her face pale. "Where is she?" she demanded. His father stepped forward, eyes burning. "What have you done?" But Armand didn't answer. His eyes kept scanning the entrance, waiting for me to show up so he could explain away his humiliation with arrogance. He kept expecting me, waiting for me, needing me to be the girl he thought I was. But for the first time in his life, he was waiting for someone who had no intention of coming. His lover, wearing her silver dress as if she was starring in a low-budget drama, tried to smooth her hair and smile as reporters snapped photos. "She's probably overreacting," she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She'll come back." But Armand flinched. He knew better. He knew I wasn't dramatic, or emotional or impulsive. If I disappeared, it meant something deeper. Something dangerous. Meanwhile, miles away, I stepped into my lawyer's office, with an expression calm enough to frighten even myself. He looked up from his desk, studying my wedding gown with concern. "It's time?" he asked quietly. "It's time," I said, and set the heavy veil aside. He slid a folder toward me. Thick, detailed, final. Inside it were the documents I had prepared silently for weeks, my exit plan. Because while Armand thought he was clever enough to hide his affair, he had no idea someone was feeding me every detail. Someone who had been in my place once, who had lost years of her life to a man just like him. She recognized the signs in my relationship and sent me anonymous warnings, screenshots, voice notes, locations, even a photograph or two. I didn't want to believe her. I fought the truth, hoping it was a misunderstanding. But every new piece of evidence was sharper than the last, cutting away at my denial until all that remained was reality. So I prepared, quietly, patiently, steadily. My lawyer and I worked through everything: prenup, divorce petition, asset claim, ownership rights to his company shares, proof of infidelity, proof of emotional abuse, proof of public humiliation. Everything timed, everything filed, everything ready. So while Armin stood at the altar holding another woman's hand, calling her the real bride, his entire world was collapsing at the courthouse, piece by piece, signature by signature. Back at the wedding, people were starting to scream. Someone suggested calling the police. Another thought I'd run away out of shame. A reporter whispered into her mic that the missing bride scandal would be the story of the year. The lover, insecure, anxious, realizing the shock wasn't turning out as glamorous as she imagined, hissed, maybe she's doing this for attention. But Armand wasn't listening anymore. He had stepped away from the crowd and was staring at his phone, his face draining of color, because that's when the first notification hit his inbox, then another, and another: court filings, legal documents, restrictions, asset freezes, company board notifications. His control slipping through his fingers like dust. One of his groomsmen rushed to him. "Armin, what is this? Why is your access to the accounts blocked?" But Armin shoved him away, eyes wild, mouth trembling. And then the final blow landed. A leaked recording. The anonymous woman, my unexpected guardian angel, had posted the first clip online. Within minutes, everyone at the wedding received it on their phones. Armand's voice. Clear, cruel, disgustingly proud. "She's just convenient, she'll accept anything, she's manageable." Then came his lover's voice, laughing. "And once the wedding is over, we'll make sure she's out of the way." Gasps spread like a ripple through the hall. His mother pressed a hand over her chest. His father cursed so loudly the microphones picked it up. The guests watched Armand as if seeing his true face for the first time. Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. Security tried to block people. But nothing could stop the collapse. Armand threw his phone on the ground, smashing it. He turned toward the doors. Again, desperate, panicking. "Where is she?" he shouted, as if he had any right to call for me. He ran outside, shouting my name into the wind. "Come back! We can talk!" He didn't understand that silence was the answer, that disappearing was the closure, that I didn't owe him a single word. He kept pacing outside the venue, pulling his hair, trembling like a man watching everything he built burn to ash. His lover tried to grab his arm, but he shoved her off, screaming at her to shut up. The guests recoiled. His parents turned away. Nothing could save him now. Not excuses, not charm, not lies. A week later, when the dust finally settled, he showed up at my parents' house, eyes hollow, clothes wrinkled, a man stripped of ego. He begged to speak with me. He cried. He promised. He apologized. But I didn't open the door, not out of hatred, not out of spite, but out of peace. Because for the first time, I truly understood the power of walking away before someone decides to break you. The world saw the scandal. The world judged him. The world laughed at the man who tried to humiliate his bride, and ended up destroying himself instead. And me? I rebuilt my life quietly, gracefully, on my own terms. My disappearance from the wedding wasn't an escape, it was a declaration. A statement louder than any confrontation. You cannot break a woman who saves herself first. And that, more than anything, is the twist he never recovered from.